If you like what I do, consider joining my channel or donating to my coffee. Links in the description.
Sweet! They must have spent a lot of money on this.
Okay, I'm gonna be real with you. When it comes to Korean culture, the deepest I've gone is BTS, Squid Game, and K-pop Demon Hunters. Which is to say, I haven't gone very deep. So when I spotted Mask of Soul, a Korean mythology-inspired Metroidvania, my interest peaked. Then I saw it had heavily parry-based combat, and I got a little skittish. But then I saw there was accessibility options, and I got excited again. What? Who do you think you are, Lord Yama? You don't get to judge me. Let's push my parrying ineptitude aside for now so we can focus on what Mask of Soul is all about. You play as Chong-Oh Chasa, a gatekeeper of the underworld whose past temper tantrum left the realm vulnerable. To atone, Lord Yama tasks him with guarding the sacred masks that balance the worlds of the living and the dead. But as soon as your first shift starts, the masks break their seals and escape into the mortal world. Now, Chung-Oh has to clean up the mess and figure out what's going on with the ominous Red Moon. Is Mask of Soul a Korean tale worth telling? Or should I just stick to BTS?
Combat.
Crow's out of the bag on this one. Mask of Soul has parry-based combat, and I sucked at it. But it's a good parry-based combat system, so I still had a lot of fun with it. Yes, you can be bad at something and still have fun. Like being a YouTuber. Before we get into parrying, let's talk basics. One of Mask of Soul's biggest hooks is its swappable masks. You eventually collect 5, each with its own attack rhythm and a unique spirit move. A high damage, long range ability that burns vigor. The blue meter under your HP. Chongo's starter mask is quick and balanced, the next one hits twice in rapid succession, and another fires long-range waves with a screen-wide laser as its spirit attack. This was my mask of choice, obviously. You can swap masks anytime, and the charm-like accessory system lets you customize each one for different builds, but I didn't find swapping practical. The timing differences in attacks between masks were so drastic that I couldn't keep track of everything in the heat of battle. And boys, let me tell ya, the battles in this game are tough. Every boss was a roadblock, not because they're poorly designed, but because I'm just bad. The parry system itself is great, responsive, satisfying, and every successful parry blasts enemies with a damaging shockwave. No poise meter, no counter system buildup, just instant damage and a big vigor boost so you can do more soul attacks for even more damage. It's an all or nothing system that provides little grace with its parry windows, unlike Nine Souls' more forgiving internal bleeding mechanic. But it still works well and rewards patience. Bosses are the meat of the game. There's exploration and platforming between each boss, of course, but most of your time is spent learning patterns, reading tells, and getting punched in the face. This is not an easy game. Every single boss took me several tries to beat. I just couldn't keep up with them, and this brings me to my one real critique. The bosses were too tanky. I often felt like my damage output was never enough and fights just went on way too long. And thus, I would slip up and get demolished. I don't know, whenever parry-based games have long fights, I eventually lose rhythm, which always leads to deadly consequences. Outside the parry system, combat's actually pretty basic. You have swappable masks with different fighting styles and soul attacks, but you can only ever attack in front of you. Chongo can't jump into the air and strike downward, nor can he strike upward. Going back to 9 Souls, I don't think Yi could do those attacks either, but I didn't really notice because Yi had combos, floatiness when he struck something in the air, and many different types of parries. Chung-O isn't nearly as versatile with his kit, though he does eventually get a dash with iframes like Yi, and that's big. Also, I never know where to put this in the combat section, but Chung-O has Estus flasks to heal himself. According to the game's achievements, you can upgrade these flasks, but I was never able to. I was stuck with the same 2 weak flasks the entire game. If anyone figured out how to upgrade these things, let me know in the comments. Oh, also, there's corpse running. Awesome. And that's it for combat. Mask of Souls combat boils down to a simple truth. If you enjoy parry-based combat and bosses that demand real pattern mastery, Mask of Soul is your game. The swappable masks add flavor, the spirit attacks give you burst options, and the parry system, while strict, feels great when you nail it. Bosses hit hard and the fights run long, but the core loop of reading tells, timing parries, and cashing out with big soul strikes stays satisfying throughout. It's a challenging, focused combat system that rewards patience, precision, and stubbornness in equal measure. And if this all sounds too much for you, there are accessibility options to adjust damage reduction and your damage output. So if you're interested in the game but don't think you'll be able to handle its combat, the devs got your back.
Abilities, platforming.
The platforming in Soul of Mask is actually weird. It's abundantly apparent the game's all about combat, so the end game emphasis on platforming feels out of left field. Granted, many of the exceptionally difficult platforming sections are optional, but the game's final biome is not. And so the moderate increase in platforming difficulty during the last stretch felt unearned because I didn't get enough practice throughout the game to justify this difficulty spike. There's nothing about Mask of Souls platforming I deem great or memorable. Firstly, gravity is not kind to Chung-O. He drops like a sack of potatoes while airborne. Great for combat, but not so much for platforming. Secondly, our little Chasa doesn't get any neat abilities to play with for the majority of the game, and none of the abilities could be described as unique. He gets an air dash, a double jump, a wall jump, and a hook shot type move. All pretty basic stuff. There's nothing inherently wrong with that, unless it's paired with the next issue, bland level design. Chung-O's world is boxy. Lots of flat, parallel, and perpendicular surfaces, which, again, isn't inherently bad for a Metroidvania. Even Hollow Knight's world is structured this way, and many people say that game's the greatest Metroidvania of all time. Mask of Souls' issue is its bland level design combined with its bland traversal options. Moving in this world, there's really nothing to get excited for beyond your next boss encounter. There are practically no biome gimmicks beyond the bouncy mushrooms, which must always be bouncy, for that is video game law. The game does have a cold area gimmick where you have to find warm spots in order not to take damage ripped straight out of Silksong, which was ripped straight out of another game, I'm certain. Point is, there's not a lot to do platforming wise, and when there is, it's been done before. Now, do I think this overwhelming dose of platforming blandness makes Mask of Soul a bad game? Not really. Mask of Soul is a game about combat, so platforming being treated as an afterthought doesn't surprise me, nor does it take away from the game's overall enjoyment, in my opinion. That said, I can't deny I was a little disappointed in the lackluster platforming and annoyed by the platforming's inexplicable uptick in difficulty in the game's final act. And that'll do it for this section. Mask of Souls platforming ultimately lands in a strange place. It's serviceable, occasionally frustrating, and clearly secondary to the game's true focus. The traversal kit is familiar, the level design is plain, and the few biome gimmicks don't add much variety. So when the final act suddenly demands precision platforming, it feels more like a curveball than a climax. None of this sinks the overall experience because the game's heart is in its combat. But the platforming never grows into anything more than a functional bridge between boss fights. It works, it's fine, but it's hard not to wish it had a little more spark.
Progression.
Mask of Soul is a Hollow-like on the MV spectrum, which is surprising because it does so many Souls-like things. Resurrecting enemies at save points, corpse running, and Estus Flask healing. But instead of giving you XP, stat scaling, or mask-based builds like a Soulsvania, it goes the Hollow Knight route. All upgrades come from exploration, shops, and character modifications. Gear and seals are the core of that system. They're pretty similar in that they act as modifications that boost Chungo, with the main difference being that seals are mask-specific and gear isn't. That means whatever gear you equip, its effects are active regardless of the mask you're using. Conversely, seals have to be equipped to masks individually, and as you change masks during combat, your seals will also change. For instance, if you have a seal that emits a damaging poison cloud on one mask but not on the others, when you switch, you will lose that poison cloud effect. But you can equip the same seal on multiple masks, so if you want that poison cloud effect no matter which mask you wear, then just equip that seal on every single mask. In theory, this is a pretty neat system that lends itself to a lot of player expression with multiple builds you can change on the fly. But in practice, I just couldn't keep up with it during these fast-paced battles. And that could just be a me thing. There may be some high-level players out there who would love this kind of mechanic and who could use it to its fullest extent. But for a dude who was having trouble just with the basic parry, having that much freedom was something my brain was just not gonna comprehend. I just created a single build I liked and stuck with it. Maybe that's why I wasn't as successful as I wanted to be. Beyond gear and seals, you can strengthen your chasa through a few other means. A blacksmith who upgrades gear, a trader who exchanges rare items for excellent equipment, and special stones that enhance your masks. And that's it for progression. Mask of Souls progression ends up being a clean, exploration-driven system that gives you plenty of ways to tweak Chungo without bringing leveling and stats to the table. The gear seal setup has real potential for creative builds, even if its mask-specific juggling is tough to manage in fast combat. And the extra upgrade paths, blacksmith boosts, and mask enhancements round things out without overcomplicating anything. It's a flexible, hollow-like progression model that rewards exploration more than optimization, even if players like me wind up sticking to one comfortable build instead of swap maxing.
Exploration.
Exploration in Mask of Soul is extremely linear with biomes that very much feel like levels, leaving backtracking exclusively to finding optional rewards. And surprisingly, this strict linear structure works in Mask of Soul's favor. Mask of Souls is at its very best when you're fighting things. So, in order to maximize your Mask of Souls enjoyment, any time spent outside of fighting things needs to be minimalized and needs to complement or enhance your future aspects of fighting things. Mask of Souls knows this and smartly and effectively crafts its experience so that the time between boss fights is small and any extracurricular exploration is rewarded with nice stuff to help you fight better. I was thrilled every time I discovered anything because I knew it was going to help me survive. Find a permanent health or vigor increase? Score. Get a new seal or piece of gear? Sweet. Got you some new coins to trade or a special stone to enhance your mask? Heck yeah, brother. I know finding stuff to help survivability can essentially be said about finding stuff in any Metroidvania. But for Mask of Souls, it just hit different. Everything I found felt so useful and impactful, and because the fights were so difficult, I was just so much more appreciative of the things I found. So, $1,000,000 question, is Mask of Souls exploration rewarding? You bet the 10 hells of the underworld it is. The game's general exploration may not be as exciting as other MVs thanks in large part to its linearity, but I sure did like to find stuff, and that counts for a lot. To wrap this up, I'll say the fast travel is excellent with every save point being a travel point, and the in-game map was pretty good. It tracked biome completion, showed where possible exits were in each room, and labeled points of interest automatically, like if there was an item hidden in the room or a shopkeeper. It was pretty dummy-proof, allowing me to focus all my brain power on boss patterns. That's it for exploration. Mask of Souls exploration ends up being simple but satisfying. The biomes are linear, the detours are brief, and the game wastes no time getting you back to the action. Every optional path reliably hands you something that makes the next fight easier, whether it's a health upgrade, vigor boost, or a new seal or gear piece. Even if the world isn't the most exciting to traverse, the rewards hit hard enough to make backtracking feel worthwhile. With excellent fast travel and a clear, helpful map, exploration stays focused, functional, and consistently beneficial. A clean support pillar for the game's combat-first identity.
Atmosphere. Narrative.
As great as Mask of Souls combat is, its presentation comes in at a close second. I love the hand-drawn art style, both in-game and in the comic book style cutscenes before each boss fight. And I especially love the contrast between the two mediums. The cutscenes are detailed, dramatic pieces with dynamic lighting, while the in-game characters lean into a chibi look that makes them cute rather than intimidating. I also really enjoy the Korean mythology-inspired aesthetic and appreciated seeing those influences brought to life. The music is solid, though the dev mentions using AI for the soundtrack and sound effects, so I'm just gonna move on. The narrative itself is fine. The premise works and the plot moves, but these characters love to talk. It can take 30 minutes just to reach the actual game proper because everyone is so verbose and not for any meaningful reason. Most of the dialogue could say the same thing in half the words. It's not a deal breaker, but sometimes less really is more. And that's it for this section. Mask of Souls' atmosphere and narrative ultimately land as a strong complement to its combat. Stylish, flavorful, and occasionally long-winded. The hand-drawn art and comic book cutscenes give the world a striking identity. The chibi character designs add charm, and the Korean mythology aesthetic ties everything together beautifully. The story itself is serviceable, even if the dialogue drags its feet, but the presentation consistently elevates the experience. It's not the game's main draw, yet it does enough, and looks good enough to keep the world engaging between fights.
Final thoughts and score.
Mask of Soul delivers a tight, demanding action experience wrapped in striking art and a flavorful Korean mythology aesthetic. Its combat is absolutely the star of the show, backed by rewarding exploration and a progression system that gives you plenty of ways to power up and express yourself. The platforming and dialogue don't always pull their weight, but the overall package remains engaging, stylish, and satisfying, especially if you enjoy mastering tough encounters. I award Mask of Soul a 7.5 out of 10. Mask of Soul is available on PC. I played the game exclusively on the Steam Deck with 0 issues, and therefore give it a Steam Deck rating of verified.
Pair placement.
Mask of Soul is a genuinely fun and tough game, and anyone who enjoyed Nine Souls or Solitaria will feel right at home. Just know its scope is modest, around 6 hours if you're sharp with its combat, and its Metroidvania elements mostly play support. The platforming ranges from okay to frustrating, progression feels good, and exploration is rewarding even if it only does the bare minimum to qualify for the genre. Beyond its excellent combat and cool comic book cutscenes, nothing stands out as amazing. But nothing drags the experience down either. From a Metroidvania perspective, Mask of Soul does most things well enough. Mask of Soul brings balance to the C tier. If combat is your main priority, you might enjoy Mask of Soul far more. And for those who find pleasure in pain, you have the option from the hub town to refight any boss you've already defeated, and a recent patch added a full boss rush mode. So if you're a parry-loving maniac, this game might be a challenge to chase after.